Hey, just a heads up that the following content may be disturbing or triggering for some listeners and is not appropriate for children. Please take care of yourself and others who may be listening with you. Welcome to the Bonus Babies Podcast, a show that has no easy answers, only hard questions.
We went to the swap meet. We were in a car. It was me, my stepdad, his brother, and my mom. Everybody else had already gotten off. And me and my mom got into this argument. She ended up hitting me, and she starts actually fighting with me. So by then I'm a teenager, and I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm tired of this. So I hit her back. I start fighting back because it's about damn time I stood up for myself, because you're not going to keep doing this to me. So I hit her back. Now I'm 13. So I hit her back. And my stepdad jumps in, his brother jumps in. So I'm literally getting jumped by 3 grown adults in this car. The security guard to the swap meet was literally right there. The van door was wide open, and we're all fighting at this point. And then my stepdad's like, "You're not gonna put hands on your mom." And I was like, that, to me, that is not a mom. Somebody who picks a man over her kids, lets him do all these things, that's not a mom.
Can you tell me what you call the kids who you've cared for over the years?
We feel that the children that we receive coming into our home are bonuses. So we call them bonus babies.
I love that. This is your host, Jayne Amelia Larson, and I'm a CASA, a court-appointed special advocate volunteer for youth in foster care. Yeah, I know, it's a mouthful. In the same way a CASA works, I explore all things in the foster care maze by talking to kids, parents, caregivers, attorneys, social workers, therapists, really anybody and everybody who will speak to me to keep the conversation open and the information flowing about all things CASA.
Hi there, this is Jake Eberly, the producer of the Bonus Babies podcast, and today's guest is Nia Garcia. I had the pleasure of talking with Nia myself, and I think what's most impressive to me is that even though she had a very dysfunctional family and was kicked out of her home when she was 13, lived on the streets and was addicted to drugs, she fortunately turned that all around. Enjoy the episode.
Wow, I'm here with Nia Garcia. Hi, Nia. Are we on?
We're on.
Oh my gosh. I just want listeners to know it's taken about, I'm going to say a year for us to connect, and then several hours the other day, and then several hours today. But we are speaking to each other. We can hear each other. And this is our time.
Yeah.
All right. So can you tell me a little bit about who you are and how you were raised? What were you like as a little girl?
I was very outgoing. I was very social. There was a part of me that was bad, but I mean, what kid isn't,
No, we all have bad parts. Yep. I mean, I still do, and I'm trying to hide them. Yep.
You know what? Me too.
Yeah.
I don't know. I was pretty out there for a kid. I was crazy.
Really? You're crazy. Okay, because I know that when you were 14, you were removed from your home, and I know you don't really want to talk about exactly what happened, but can you give me an idea just so I can understand it a little bit better?
I've actually come to the conclusion that I don't want to not talk about what happened. You know what I mean? Because I felt like the reasons I did whatever I did to get into the system was because I needed that type of attention that I wasn't getting.
Yes.
So I don't mind talking about it now.
Okay, go for it.
I was having relations with my stepbrother. I think I was looking for love in all the wrong places because of how I was getting treated at home with my mom and my stepdad. And that was kind of like my way of saying, okay, well, you were doing X, Y, and Z to me for no reason when I wasn't being bad. I'm going to do this so now you have a reason to do X, Y, and Z,
Right.
you know?
Right. Right. So they mistreated you. You felt so. Then you acted out, and the way you acted out was by having a relationship with your stepbrother.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And how did he feel
Yeah.
about that? Like, was he just taking advantage of you? Was he older or younger, or was he just experimenting with you?
I honestly think it was kind of like a mutual thing. I wouldn't necessarily say he was taking advantage of me because there was a point in time where I had told him like, "Hey, I don't feel comfortable doing this anymore." And he accepted that. And then it seemed my life got a little bit better between the relationship with my mom and my stepdad. So I was like, there was no need for me to continue doing it. He was older. He is 2 years older than me. So when all of this started between me and him, I was 13.
Wow.
He was 15.
Mm-hmm.
And then he had went to like a group home, like a juvenile group home in Chino. And that's when I was like, okay, like this gives me the opportunity to be like, okay, that's enough. So we stopped. We stopped doing everything. And then he got back. I had just turned 14 and somehow it picked up again and it went downhill from there.
And you weren't telling anybody about it, right? You were keeping it a secret.
No. Hmm.
Right. So
Nobody knew.
right. So when you say it went downhill, it ended up at the police station, right?
Yes.
And how did that happen? What happened?
So it was December 18th. It was my stepdad's birthday. I remember that my mom was getting ready to go out and meet him at this bar that they always went to. It was a Thursday night, so it was karaoke. And my stepdad's sister was there getting ready. I had just put my little brothers to bed in my mom's room, and she was like, "Okay, I'm leaving." And I was like, "Cool." And my stepbrother was in the bedroom. I slept in the living room on a bed. And so my brothers were asleep in my mom's room. I had closed the door. They had left, being my mom and my stepdad's sister. They left. And as we were in the middle, like about to do whatever we were doing, the front door opened. My mom starts walking towards the room, but I hear her thinking I'm in the living room, whispering my name, and she's like, "Nia, Nia." And so I'm like mid taking off my bra, and it's crazy because my bra little latch got stuck. And I was like trying to put two and two together, like, okay, something bad might happen. That's why my bra's stuck. But then I was like, what the heck? My bra's stuck, So I was like, okay. And then sure enough, she walks in and she gets to like the hallway, and I'm standing right here. She's in the hallway. So we're looking at each other, but it's pitch black. And I didn't have my shirt on. I was just in my bra. And she turns on the hallway light. She sees me and she starts flipping out and cussing. And I went into the restroom. I put my shirt on. My stepdad's sister came to the door and she's like, "I'm not mad at you. Like, tell me what happened, whatever." Like,
Right. So was your stepbrother there, like behind you? Like,
yeah, no,
so,
no, 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 no. He was on the bed.
oh, he was on the bed. Okay. So he like,
Yeah.
right. So it wasn't just you alone in the room. It was
No, no,
it
no, no,
was you
no.
and
Yes.
he about to get it on,
Mm-hmm.
and then you get caught. Okay.
Yes. So then I open the door. She's talking to me. She's like, "Why didn't you ever tell me like that this was happening?" And I was like, "Well, it was supposed to end a long time ago. Like, I don't know. And so my mom ends up calling my stepdad, and she's like, "You're not going to believe this," like going off. And he leaves the car parked in front of the house running. comes inside, beats my stepbrother.
Oh.
Then I'm in the living room and she starts hitting me. My mom starts hitting me and my stepdad starts hitting me. And then the craziest part of it all is they still end up going out that night.
For his birthday.
Yes, taking him with them now. And I don't know what happened when they were there at the bar, but I'm sitting at the house and I'm with my little brothers. You know, they're still in the room asleep, not knowing what's going on because they're asleep. And I made sure that they were in bed asleep before anything ever happened and the door was closed. So I'm in the living room and I'm crying because I'm bleeding on my back. Like my mom was socking me. So her wedding ring was cutting me up. So I was bleeding. I was crying. And sure enough, the very next day, they got home from the bar. My stepdad was drunk. He got a butter knife, burned it like to where it was really hot, and then burned my name off of his chest that he had tattooed.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And he did that in front of you?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And then they took us to the police station the next day. She dropped us off, both me and my stepbrother there. She dropped us off and she was like, I don't know what to do with them. They're doing things with each other. So then they separated us. We were there from the morning all the way to the night. And they were like, you know, was it against your will? And I was like, no, it was consensual.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, if anything, I engaged in it first. And my stepbrother said the same thing. Mind you, we were there for hours. So it was continuously the same story. They left us alone for a couple hours. They fed us, came back, questioned us again. And it's like the story never changed.
Mm-hmm.
So then the cops put us in 2 different cop cars. They took us back to our house and there was the cops there. There was a social worker. And it was like a whole intervention. I had my stepdad there, my stepdad's mom, the sister, and I don't know who else, I forgot. And my little brothers were there. And my stepdad's mom was like, you're going to hell. You were going to get baptized. How are you going to laugh in Jesus's face like that? Like a whole thing. And I'm sitting here like, it wasn't that serious. Like you guys knew what my life was like. You knew what I was going through with my stepdad and my mom. This was my retaliation. Maybe it wasn't the right one, but I did it because I was never a bad kid to the point where you had to sit there and beat me consistently. So this was my reason. If I was going to get beat, it was going to be a reason, a good reason. You know what I mean?
Right. Is that what you were thinking then, or is that what you realize now?
A little bit of both, actually.
Yeah.
So the social worker came. She took me and my mom into the room, and I remember the social worker was sitting on the bed, and she had asked my mom, she's like, oh, do you want to sit down when we could talk? And she's like, I'm not sitting there. That's where they had sex. And I was like, so mind you, I'm sitting on the floor because I'm not trying to be near my mom. And I'm just laughing because to me, it's like, this is karma at this point. Like everything you put me through, I want you to feel humiliated. So the social worker told her, well, you know, there's nothing that we could do. Like they're not related. He didn't sexually assault her. Like it was consensual between both of them. And so my mom had told her, well, if you don't take them, I'm going to kick them out. I'm going to pack all of their shit and I'm going to kick them out.
Wow.
And
your mom
so
was
the
mad.
social worker,
Your mom was mad.
she's psychotic. The social worker took it as, okay, well, you're being neglectful, so now I have to take them.
Right.
So my mom packed me literally like a little bag of clothes, and it was right before Christmas. And it took them a while to find me a home. I remember we went to the Reef, the place with the big chair in LA.
Mm-hmm.
I forgot what it's called.
Yeah. I'll think of it in a minute, but yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So we went there. They ended up taking us. That same night, my stepbrother ended up getting placed with his maternal grandmother.
Okay, so he got placed. Okay.
So he got placed.
Right.
I took longer to find a home, and I didn't get into foster care, like into a home, until December 22nd.
Right. So where were you between those times? Were you like,
So I was there at the Reef for the night and that day, and then they put me in a little 30-day shelter till
I
they
see.
found me somewhere, and then they put me in a home in La Puente.
okay, and then that first foster home you said was amazing, right? You really liked it, even when you were acting out. So what happened there?
The mom, she was super sweet. The girls there were super nice. The dad, on the other hand, I obviously wasn't doing well in school because that was a big change. So he decided that when it was a parent-teacher conference, he was going to go to the school, and he told the teachers the reason that I was acting out was because my mom doesn't want me and put me in the system. So I had a mental breakdown. I used to self-harm a lot back then. Even prior to getting into foster care, I had a thing with self-harming. And so when I went to the hospital, they decided that I couldn't be in their home anymore.
Because they felt they couldn't like take care of you. They didn't want to deal with the self-harm. They didn't want to deal with the mental health issues. Is that it?
Yeah.
So they 7-dayed you, or you ended up?
Yeah.
So you ended up in another shelter, right?
I ended up in another 30-day shelter. I don't remember what city.
Yeah, can you describe, do you remember what that was like? Because I bet a lot of our listeners have no idea what those shelters are like, so I want to hear it from you.
The crazy part is I've never been into a bad home. I've never been into a bad shelter, nothing. The girls there were nice. I had a problem with one girl, but she just didn't like the fact that I was there and not there for the right reasons. But it's definitely different. I feel like it's like any other home. You're placed in a room with another girl. You share the same bathroom. You do outings together. It's kind of like the same thing.
Right, so you felt safe. You didn't feel like it was
Yeah.
scary or threatened or anything.
No, there was never a time in any home that I've been in, any 30-day shelter that I've been in, or anything like that I ever felt unsafe.
That's great. And then you ended up with the Cortez family when you were 15. So tell me about that.
When I ended up with them, it's crazy because that was the first place where I felt like I could be myself. There was a lot of love in there. It's crazy how when you come into a new home, you don't feel like you belong. And then when I went there, it was a different thing. Like, Tanya was amazing. She was there consistently no matter how many breakdowns I had. And when I moved there, there was a lot.
Yeah, you were in trouble, right? You had a lot of
Yeah.
issues. Yeah.
I had so many issues. It was crazy how intense my life got when I got there. Not because of them, but like everything just started hitting me all at once. Like, oh my God, I'm not with my family, which didn't bother me as much as me not being around my brothers.
Right.
That was my biggest thing, to the point where anybody who's in my life, that's been in my life since I got into the system, can tell you I begged the social workers to put me back with my mom just so I could be with my brothers.
Right,
I
just
didn't
so
even
you
care
could
about
see,
getting hit.
right, so just so you could see your little brothers, just so you could be around them. Because you had been looking after them pretty much, right? As well.
Yeah, prior to going into the system, I took care of them. My
Right.
mom got addicted to drugs, and they became my kids.
Right, and you were the mom, right? Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so things were still rough for you, and somehow that the Cortez family didn't end up working out. You ended up in a group home. There was an incident, or what? Like that, or it was just like too much for them?
I think I had 2 hospitalizations back to back.
For hurting yourself, right?
Yeah, for hurting myself. So it was a lot for Tanya to handle. And after I got placed in the hospital and when I got out, I was in a group home. That group home, it was a good group home. David and Margaret is a good group home. Never had an issue with it, but I did get kicked out because the male staff there decided it was a good idea with one of the girls in my cottage to turn off all the lights. Mind you, at that time I was very traumatized of the dark. So
I'm
he
scared
turned
of the
off all
dark
the
too.
lights.
I'm scared of the
Oh,
dark too.
like,
I
yeah,
still am. Like
I
I have a lamp on in the house always, like the hallway or something, whatever.
I have to have my balcony light on just so the light could come in, or I have to sleep with the TV on, or as long as there's some sort of light, I feel okay.
Right.
Unless, it's like if I'm by myself, that's when I have to have all the lights in the house on. But if somebody's here with me, one light or two lights can stay on and I'll be good.
I'm totally the same way. Wow. All right. So this staff member decided you had to be in the dark.
Yeah, so he turned off all the lights. I was in the dining room section, and when he turned off all the lights, there was like a little wall, and then it's the dining table, and I was standing between the dining table and the kitchen entrance. So when I'm standing right there, I think I was putting the fruit on the table or I was taking the fruit to the kitchen, one of those. And so when he turned off all the lights, the other girl in my cottage ran to the kitchen and she's sitting on the floor in the kitchen by the sink laughing. And I drop down to the floor and I start crying. And I remember rocking myself back and forth, and I was closing my ears and I was like, please turn on the lights. This isn't funny. Like, please turn on the lights. Please turn on the lights. And I start repeating that so much that I think I blacked out because all I remember after that was him coming behind me and with his hands like kind of grabbing like my ribs and going, ah, and like scaring me. Like he literally grabbed me and like scared me. And my fight or flight kicked in. I got up and I just remember socking him like a lot. Um, and he was like, Nia, calm down. It's me. And he told the girl, turn on the lights, turn on the lights. And and I'm shaking at this point, still hitting him, crying. And I was like, please turn on the lights, turn on the lights. And so when the lights are on, he's grabbing my hands and I'm shaking and I'm crying. And he's like, it's okay. It was just a prank. It's me. Calm down.
A
And I
prank.
was like, why would, yeah. And he literally was like, I'm sorry. I didn't know that you were going to react like that. And he sent me to the main building where the head staff were, and he had let them know like that I hit him, but failed to mention the reason why. So I sat there crying and told them, and they fired him and kicked me out.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
You're kicked out, and then what else happens? Where'd you go?
I went to another 30-day shelter in Altadena. I didn't last there long because I swore up and down I was in love with this girl. And I actually met one of my close friends. I call her my heartbeat. I'm the godmother to her baby. We've been best friends since Altadena. So I think I was still 15 or 16. No, I think I was 15. Because I turned 15 in the Cortez's house and all of that happened. And I remember turning 16 back in the Cortez's house.
Right.
So I swore up and down I was in love with this girl, and I ran away from the 30-day shelter. And my heartbeat ended up coming with me and this girl. And I remember I was very against drugs back then. And the girl I was with decided it was a good idea to take me and my friend to this drug house. And I didn't know at the time that it was a drug house. We were just there because we were homeless at that point. And my heartbeat was getting tattooed by one of the guys that was selling drugs there. I ended up getting tattooed by one of the guys. And I remember I got into an argument with my girlfriend at the time, and I was like, if you want to do drugs, you can do it by yourself because I'm not going to sit here and I'm not going to put up with that. And I remember the house was in Compton, right by a bridge. And I remember one of the ladies coming in and she's like, I need you guys to get down and I need you guys to hide because I feel like they're going to shoot up the house.
Oh, well, really? Wow. Okay. Wow.
So I was like, okay, either she's very paranoid or she's onto something. Mind you, it's broad daylight when she's saying all this. So me and my heartbeat were like, okay, we're leaving. And I told my girlfriend at the time, I said, look, you can either come and stop doing drugs or you could stay. It doesn't matter. So she chose to stay. So I said, okay. So me and my heartbeat, we left. We got on the train. We called my girlfriend's mom and we let her know what was going on. And she brought all of our stuff. We took the train and we ended up in LA at my heartbeat's aunt's house. And she ended up keeping us for a bit. And then Jessica, Tanya's daughter, ended
From
up
the Cortez
messaging
family,
me.
right?
Yeah, from the Cortez family. She ended up messaging me on Facebook and she's like, it's time for you to come home. Like, stop running amok. Go ahead and come home now. So I called my social worker and I let her know that, Jessica wanted to take me in. And she took me to Jessica's house and I lived there with her.
But the story goes on because...
But the story goes on.
Okay, so you ended up on the streets again, right?
Yeah.
And also, it was pretty rough for you. You ended up on drugs yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
And also...
Yeah, so... Go ahead.
And also, you engaged in survival sex to take care of yourself, right? To just get by, to get food, to get drugs.
Yeah.
So what did that look like?
The first time I was actually still living with Jessica. So I wasn't homeless yet, but I was doing drugs. I decided one day to hang out at a park. I ended up not hanging out with the people I usually hung out with, and I ended up somewhere else, and they were doing drugs, and they had asked me like, oh, do you want to try it? And I had already tried crystal meth, and I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I mean, I don't really like it, but yeah, I don't mind trying it again.
Right, so you're talking about meth. You're not talking about pot or no, you're talking about meth.
Yeah, I went to that hardcore stuff. I skipped
like straight off. You didn't do
yeah.
You didn't do any of the gateway drugs. You just went right to well, that's kind of like you, right? You go all in.
Yeah. It's all in or nothing. So, I ended up doing crystal meth and I still didn't like it, but I kept hanging out with those people. They kept doing it, so I kept doing it. And it got to a point where I wouldn't say I was addicted, but, and I say I'm not addicted because when it didn't hit me the way it did the first time I did it, I would stop for a few days, go back at it, because the one thing I knew I was not going to do was, okay, well, it doesn't hit me when I snort a line, so let me go ahead and start injecting myself.
I see.
Or let me go ahead and start hitting the pookie. So I was like, okay, I'm not addicted because I can stop.
Right, wait. So hitting the pookie is what?
It's a glass pipe.
Right.
It's a circular bottom. You pack it like you would marijuana, but you burn the crystal to where it's melted and you smoke it. And my biggest fear was if I ever tried smoking it, I would freeze my lungs.
Right.
Because you're not supposed to hit it the way you do marijuana.
Right.
And so that was my biggest fear. That's why I was like, I'm never going to smoke it. I'm never going to inject it because snorting it was okay. So I justified my addiction.
Yeah, of course. It's really funny how the mind works, right? It's like
Yeah.
somehow that was okay because you were only doing it a certain way, a certain amount, et cetera, right?
Mm-hmm. And so I uh, I think I still kept doing it. I don't remember how I got homeless, but I had started going to my mom's house. She came back into the picture. She let me see my little brothers. And I think I had spent a couple days or a week at her house in Montebello. I was with my little brothers. I had just picked up an 8 ball of crystal meth, kept it in my sock, and I was like, okay, well, I'm going to respect her house and I'm not going to do drugs here. And I'm not going to do drugs in front of my brothers while I'm, being able to see them for the first time in, I think it was 4 years. So the last time I saw them was when they were 4 and 5. That's when I went into the system and I saw them when they were 8 and 9. So I was like, okay, this is your chance. Don't mess it up. So I would leave her house with somebody who was my best friend at the time and my cousin, and we would go get high, wait a little bit, come back. And it was after that I think my mom had hit my little brother, my littlest brother, Gordo. She had smacked him in the face. And I remember telling her, like, you're not going to put hands on him in front of me. If you want to hit somebody, go ahead and hit me. I'm older now, and I will fight back. I don't care. So she didn't like that response, ended up kicking me out. We ended up getting into this big argument, and she was like, I know you're still fucking your stepdad. Mind you, she is a very jealous person. Even when I was younger, the main reason I was getting hit was because she was jealous that he would look at me a certain way.
Right. So then she was accusing you now of sleeping with your stepdad, not your stepbrother, but your
Yes.
stepdad.
No, yes.
Wow.
So it's crazy because they were separated, right? And I had told her flat out like this. I said, the fact that you would think I would do something like that after everything he's put me through and things you don't know about hurts. I said, because no matter how much I hate you, I would never do that to you. And I was honest with her about it. So she had told me, quote unquote, it'll be a quarter to never until you see these boys again.
Wow.
And I know you're still fucking Roman, which is my stepdad. And I went off. I wasn't upset that she thought I was having relations with her ex-husband. I was upset that she threatened that I couldn't see my brothers. So I decided to make a call to DCFS. I talked to my social worker and I said, hey, Tina just hit Gordo in the face in front of me. He had a hand mark on his face, which was all true. They ended up going to East LA where I was heading, meeting up with me, and they saw that I was very skinny. I was tweaking for a couple of days already. And so they wanted to admit me into the hospital. And I said, no, I'm not going to the hospital. So I ran away. And Jessica called me and she's like, they're looking for you. Like, you can't come here. I don't want to lose you. Just, wait it out. Wait till things calm down. And I said, cool. They threatened Jessica that if she were to take me in, she would lose her license.
Wow.
So I had told her, it's not that serious. I'll just stay away. So my social worker went and picked up my stuff. And that's when I became homeless. And I was on the streets with my cousin Andrew. We were getting high consistently. I ended up meeting this guy who owns a laundromat in Linwood. And I would have sex with him for 5 minutes. And he would pay me as much money as I needed. So I took advantage of that and I started buying drugs to sell drugs to get a motel so I wasn't sleeping in the streets. But eventually, people who I thought were my friends that I originally started doing these drugs with, you know, either were setting me up or, just wanted free drugs off of me because now I was the connect where you can get whatever you want for however much you want because I'm your friend. So after a while, I started to be by myself. My cousin went his own way because I decided to get clean. And it's actually a funny story because that's how I met my fiance. And I met him through the park that I was doing drugs at. And we started hitting it off. He had told me to make a choice to pick drugs or being with him.
Wow.
And of course, yeah, I picked drugs because that was my safe haven. That was my, my blankie, my comfort. Drugs was a way to get away from everything because now my brothers are in the system or with their stepdad and I wasn't able to see them, and I didn't want them to see me like that, addicted to drugs or homeless, and I'm sleeping at the train tracks in Huntington Park by Gage Bowl, literally sleeping in dirt. I didn't want them to see that. So my fiance knew everything I was going through. He gave me a place to stay, told me I had to make a choice to pick drugs or him, and I picked drugs. He stopped talking to me, and I realized that everybody that I was with before I met him that knew I was on drugs, that engaged in me being on drugs, that even sat there and did the drugs with me, weren't people that actually cared about me. So I realized that, okay, this guy actually cares. He loves me. Let me get my life together for him. And that's something I did. I went into the Salvation Army. I got clean within 3 months, literally cold turkey. I didn't do coke to wing it off. Nothing. I just stopped altogether. I called him one day and I said, "Hi, like I'm clean. I've been clean for 3 months." And he was like, "Okay." And I said, "I have a drug test coming up. If you want, I can show you." And he's like, "Okay." I took a drug test. I remember I got 3 copies of drug tests, one for my social worker, one for Jessica, and one for him. So I gave it to my social worker, I gave it to Jessica, and she hung it on the fridge for a bit. And I think she still has it till this day. And I gave one to my fiance, and we've been together ever since.
Wow. 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 I'm so glad you met him.
Me too.
Wow. So you are sober now. You're in a clean, healthy relationship. You're
Yeah,
going to get married.
I am.
So how do you feel?
I feel more alive now than I ever did before. Like, no drug could have ever given me this much happiness. I see my brothers consistently. I'm actually getting them this weekend to stay with me for the whole weekend.
Excellent.
I'm in a beautiful home with the man that I love and that loves me. I still talk to Jessica. I don't have a relationship with my mom,
No, nothing.
but
No.
nothing at all. No. I feel like there's certain things you need to protect your peace about, and she's one person that I just don't feel there's a way to protect my happiness and my peace if she's in my life. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that means you just have to take care of yourself, right? And being around her and the potential for feeling bad or it's not worth it, right?
No, not at all. And I don't want to bring somebody back into my life that hasn't changed, that is still, struggling with her own addiction. I don't want that in my life. The same thing with, any other relationship that I've had, whether it be with my mom, my stepdad, or even friends that I used to get high with. Nobody has that connection towards me anymore. There's like a barrier. I don't associate with people I used to get high with. I don't associate with my stepdad. We don't talk. Same thing with my mom. My cousin, on the other hand, the one I had mentioned that was homeless with me, a couple months ago, he had messaged me. I had gotten off social media for a very long time because I just felt like, well, I'm dealing with being sober. It wasn't a good idea for me to be on social media because it was an easy way for me to relapse at any moment because I was weak.
Yeah, and what I love about this is that you've become really good at protecting yourself, right? You've learned how to do
Yeah,
this.
I needed to because there was a point where I was just letting anybody have whatever they needed from me, whether it be drugs, some type of love, or even somebody to walk all over. I was letting that happen because I didn't care about myself. I didn't love myself. So one day I was homeless still. I was at the park. It was nighttime. Prior to that, some stuff had happened that had nothing to do with me, but my ex-boyfriend was there. And this guy, when I'm on drugs and when I'm sober, I'm very alert one way or another, like super alert to my surroundings. And this guy that I knew was acting very funny. He was standing close to a beer bottle, and my ex boyfriend was facing his back towards him. And I noticed he kept reaching in his pockets and all of this. So I told my ex boyfriend at the time, move this way. And I don't remember what happened. I think I walked out to go sell drugs. I come back and it was a skate park. So I'm walking up the stairs to go to it was a really, really tall ramp to go down. So I was walking up there to sit up there with my friends. And the guy that was my friend, who I assumed was my friend, he decided it was a good idea to pull a gun out to my face. And my two friends that were sitting at the top of the ramp ran down, and they're from a gang. So they ran down. They had guns on them. My ex boyfriend was right there. And the guy from a gang had pulled his gun out, and he had told him that's the last thing you want to do, especially to her. And so I'm standing right there, not knowing what to do. And there was two guns on him, one gun on me, and my ex-boyfriend took the gun. They pocket checked him, and he was like, it was just a joke. I wasn't going to do nothing to her. And my ex-boyfriend had told him, you might be my friend, but I still love this girl, and I don't care. Like, that's something you don't do, joke or not. So the guys from the gang had told him, like, get the fuck out of here. And they kept his gun. And he had told him, like, well, can I get my gun back? And they were like, what? So they ended up walking me to Gage Bowl because I was still staying there at the time. I was staying right in the train tracks behind it. And he was following us, trying to get his gun back. And he was apologizing to me consistently to the point where I had to call one of my friends. And I was like, hey, do you mind if I stay with you tonight because X, Y, and Z happened? And he's like, yeah, that's fine. And so I cut everybody off after that. That was like my wake up call. Like, you need to get your shit together because you could have died tonight. If nobody was there, he would have shot you straight in the head. Your brothers would have never found out. Or if they did, how traumatized would they be? And so my cousin, I reached out to him when I got back on social media just a couple months ago. I reached back out to him and he was like, look, it looks like life's treating you good. And I was like, yeah, it is. I'm sober. It's going to be 6 years this year. And he's like, I'm so proud of you. I still am struggling to get sober. And I said, you need a helping hand. I said, I don't mind being that person. And he had told me, he's like, I'm still homeless. I said, well, I have a place. You could come live with me. And he said, well, I'm in LA right now because I just had surgery done and I'm sick. I have pneumonia and bronchitis. And so I was like, okay, well, you can recover here at my house. And he was like, I'm still doing drugs. I don't want to be around you while I'm doing that. I don't want to bring that into your house. The most selfless person ever, because anybody else would have taken advantage and came. And I know I'm strong enough not to do drugs because I've come too far, I have my brothers in my life. I have healthy relationships with people that I didn't have before. And I was reaching out to him. It was Christmas, Thanksgiving. I told him if he wanted to come over, he could come over. And he wasn't replying to me. And in February, I had just found out he passed away.
Wow.
So it breaks me because it's like, if he would have just been a little selfish and came over, I could have helped him.
Yeah, you could have.
I could have done whatever I needed to. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it breaks my heart that he passed away. And it's crazy because he passed away. I found out in February, but he passed away on Christmas.
Wow.
So he could have been here at my house, getting sober, getting better. And instead, he was scared I was going to, lose my sobriety. And he decided to not come over.
I'm sorry, Nia, because I can tell it that you really cared a lot about him.
Oh, yeah, that was my best friend. We literally did everything together. Drugs. We, shared a lot of laughs. It's crazy because he's not, blood-wise, he's not my cousin, but my godmother is his mom and we grew up together, so it's crazy how things work out. Like if I would have hopped on Instagram a little sooner and not worried so much about my peace, I could have still had time with him. He could have had the chance to get sober. And that's why I protect my peace so much now, because I'm scared that something like that could happen. If I ever relapsed, which God forbid, I don't think I ever will, I wouldn't want nobody to find out I'm dead 2 months later, no matter what the cause of death was.
Yeah, so can you tell me, how was I Foster? How did that change you? Because you were really involved in that, and maybe you still are.
I Foster, I got a chance to, be around with people that were just like me, communicated on a different level, and I'm not involved in it anymore, but it was really an eye-opener. I used to think that there was nobody like me. There was nobody that was addicted to drugs at such a young age, who was homeless, like the system failed her for so long. I was homeless for a long time, and I didn't think there was anyone like me. There couldn't have been, because the system should help everybody. But when I was in I Foster, I met a bunch of kids that are like, yeah, I'm currently homeless with a baby. And it's like, you're homeless with a baby? I was homeless by myself, but I can't imagine being homeless with a baby. So there's still some people I talk to. There's a lot of connections that I have with certain places that, when I need help, they're there to help. And I think that's the one thing I'm grateful for about I Foster. And the people and staff that they had on their team, very understanding, and they made you feel like you belonged there,
Yeah.
They worked on a different level. The main person was in foster care. So it's like, you're working for an organization that actually understands you and what you've been through. As for any other job, it's like, oh, okay, she's had a hard life, but I mean, who hasn't? So I loved it there. If I ever got the chance to do it again, I probably would. Or even if the program is still running by the time my brothers are older, I would hope that they would try it out, you know?
Right. So now, how about for you now? What are your what kind of dreams do you have? What do you want to do creatively or work-wise or just in your life in general? Because you have it all ahead of you now. You got to
I do actually. I'm waiting to get my license to be a nail technician. I already went to school for it.
Ooh.
So after that, I want to get my license to become an esthetician, and I want to open my own spot and start up my business, make it a family thing eventually. And right now what I'm doing working for Disneyland isn't a permanent thing, it's kind of just like a little extra money until I know I can start my stuff up and be on what I want to be on.
Right, but I bet it's pretty good to have the security, right? Because it's
Yeah.
there. Yeah. So I'm going to ask you something I ask all my guests. What is the one thing about you that nobody would ever guess unless you told them?
I think it would be my drug addiction.
Right, because you do seem like you walked out of a Disney movie right now. You have like a wholesomeness about you. I just cannot imagine that you were addicted to meth.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy even talking about it.
And that you were living that whole drug life.
That was my life for, 6 years? No, probably less. But it was my life for a while. And there's people that I work with, and I'm like, oh, yeah. Because they'll tell me, like, oh, well, I used to do this. And I'm like, oh, yeah, me too. I was addicted. Yeah. And they're like, huh? And I'm like, yeah, and I'll show pictures of when I was super skinny and I thought that was cute because I was addicted to drugs. And I now look at it and I'm like, that was disgusting. I cannot believe myself because I turned in to the one person I swore up and down I would never be, and that was my mom.
Oh, wow, really? And how do you feel about yourself now? I'm just going to ask you once more. I think I know the answer, but I want to hear it again.
I'm proud of myself for how far I've come.
I know you are. It's really, really awesome. I want to thank you for talking to me today. It's taken a long time. I appreciate your persistence and the fact that you just were like, we're going to make this happen no matter what. And I think we did.
We did. 14 hours later, a year later.
It's really true. Thank you so much, Nia.
You're very welcome.
So Nia called us after her initial interview with Jayne, and she felt like she needed to clarify things a little more. So the following is her point of view on what motivated her actions. Hey, Nia. It's a pleasure to meet you.
Great meeting you.
So let's get right into this.
Yeah, all good.
So Jayne had spoken to me about you wanting to clarify
Yes.
that you had something more to say.
Yeah.
Tell us about it.
So it's kind of like a backstory of how it led up to me thinking this was a good idea to kind of like say a big F you and smack in the face to my biological mother and my stepdad. So when I was younger, before my stepdad came into the picture, my mom...
How old were you?
I was still in elementary school. I think I was like 6 or 7, if I'm not mistaken. My mom, Tina, she was a decent mom. She fit the criteria of being a good mom. She spent quality time with me and my older brother. She tucked us into bed. She slept with my older brother. She would hug him to sleep at night. If he was with his dad, she would hug me to sleep at night. So she was a relatively good mom. We went to church. We were, focused on God. Like, it was crazy how life took a change and turned for the worse, because when she met my stepdad, she met him in the men's home. And
in the men's home.
When you meet somebody, yeah. Do you know what that is?
No, I don't. Please clarify, just for anyone who might not know.
Okay, so the men's home is basically like a rehab, I would call it. It's all the men that have been on drugs, that are on probation, have went to jail, but want to get right with God. So the director of the home decides how long you should be in this home to become a man of God, a woman of God. There's men's home and women's home. And he was in the men's home. He I don't know the reasoning he got in the men's home, but they ended up meeting. They ended up starting a relationship behind everybody's back.
Was she
And
working there?
no, she just went to church there. That was it.
Oh, okay. I see. All right.
So she ended up dating him and they ended up getting together. And at first, he made her really happy. I never had a dad, so I was like, oh, he could be my dad. Cool.
Mhm.
So he ended up being a really good guy. And then one day, I was coming home from elementary school, and my mom is walking with a suitcase to her car, and she said she was going to go spend the night at her best friend's house for the weekend. And I was like, oh, okay, have fun. Didn't really like her best friend, so I was like, whatever.
So who was taking care of you guys when she left to go sleep at her best friend's house?
Oh, my grandparents.
Oh, okay.
So she ended up not coming back. And we kind of didn't know why. She came back and she was pregnant with my little brother, Champ. And I ended up moving out of my grandparents' house to move in with her because I was so excited I was going to be a big sister. Like I had somebody that was going to look up to me, so I had to do it right and I had to be there.
How long was she gone that she left and then came back pregnant?
To me right now feels like she was only gone a short period of time, but she was gone for a while because I remember when she came back, she wasn't only pregnant, she was married as well. So,
Oh my goodness.
yeah, like imagine how mad I was as a little kid. Like, you got married. One, I wasn't a flower girl. Like, and all of his family was at the wedding. None of us were.
Wow.
Not me or my older brother, my grandparents, nothing. So, I ended up moving in with her because she was having my little brother, and we had lived in an apartment in Whittier, and that's kind of when like our life started going for the worse because my stepdad was working at Keebler Cookies in, I think it was Bellflower, and he was gone all the time. But when he would come home, it would be constant arguments. So I would take my little brother into the room. I would take care of him. And then she was also pregnant with my littlest brother, Gordo.
Mm-hmm.
So by the time she had him, like everybody from my side of the family came around to be a part of her life because she just birthed 2 babies into this world. So it's like babies bring a family together until we moved to this house on Penn Street in Whittier. My brothers are a year and 3 days apart. So my brother Champ was already a year old and Gordo was, I want to say like a month or 2 months old. And at that time, I didn't know, but soon found out that Roman and Tina, my mom and my stepdad, were doing drugs together. So I would stay home watching my little brothers, thinking they were just going out after work, having fun with their friends. Turns out that the relationship I had with my mom that had some type of boundary, that boundary got broken and I became what I was, a daughter. I became her friend. So she would sit here and she would tell me, oh yeah, can you believe that while I was driving the car, Roman was having sex with a stripper in the back seat, and I'm looking at them having sex and I'm driving and I'm looking at her like, what are you talking about, lady? Like, and it got to a point where she would tell me, oh, okay, well, my connect's gonna come. He's gonna bring me Coke, keep the babies in the room with you.
Oh my goodness.
So I grew up at such a young age knowing what all of this was. And none of my family knew because I acted like I was living such a good life. So the first time my stepdad had hit Tina, I remember I had a really close friend over from elementary school and she was spending the night and I had to get a frying pan to like get him off of her. And I remember that Tina started yelling at me because I was getting him off of her from hitting her. So I kind of didn't understand like what I did wrong. And I was like, okay, whatever, I'll leave it alone. Then it got to a point where Tina was on a come down in the room off of Coke. And it was a 4-bedroom house. So her room was all the way in the front. And then you'd go through the kitchen, you walk to the back, and then it was my bedroom. So I was all the way in the back of the house. So I was supposed to go to church with some of the girl gang that was there. And they were going to pick me up. We were going to go to the movies, whatever. And I had given my stepdad my money to hold. So I didn't spend my money and I had enough money to go to the movies. And so when they were on their way to get me, my little brothers were already asleep. Like I made sure I put them to bed. They were in the room. And I had asked if he could give me my money so I could go because they were already coming. And he was like, "You're not going." And I was like, "Why not? That's my money. Can I please go?" And he's like, "No, you're not going." But at the time he was on a come down as well. He took it to a whole different level. He came into my room, took his belt off, and started hitting me with it. That was the first time he ever hit me. Mind you, before, I would call him dad.
Right.
So as he's hitting me, he's like, "Who's your dad? Who's your dad?" And I am laying there crying, like, and I'm like, "You're not my dad. You're not my dad. I hate you." And I'm literally screaming for my mom. And she's 3 bedrooms away, all the way in the front of the house, hoping that she's going to wake up and hear me. She eventually hears me. And mind you, I was already hit bad by this time. Like he did not stop until she got in the room and had to drag him out. So I had belt marks all over me. And I remember her telling me, "I'll watch the boys close the door and block your door."
And how old were you when this was happening?
I was barely in middle school, like probably fresh out of elementary going into middle school. That's where I was.
So now after that point, that was like you say, a turning point for you. When was the stepbrother in the house?
He didn't come and move in with us until I was 13. So from that point on, I was getting hit the end of elementary, beginning of middle school, all the way up until I entered foster care. Goodness. So none of my family knew about that. My older brother didn't live with us, so he didn't know I was going through that. He was there occasions, when my stepdad was hitting on my mom. He got to be there for that and realized like, okay, like I don't want to be around this. So he lived with my grandparents the whole time. He never got the chance to live with us. And I was the only one getting hit. My stepdad never put hands on my older brother. He never put hands on my little brothers. But it got to a point where my mom started taking my stepdad's side. So there's a situation. We had moved into the back house of our pastor at the time in Norwalk. And I had said something to my stepdad. I can't even remember what it was, but my older brother ended up being there at the time. And my stepdad ended up leaving for work. And I remember Tina was so pissed at me because he left for work and he shouldn't be leaving mad. And I'm such a bad daughter that the baby bouncer that you put a newborn baby in that has the metal part, my little brother wasn't in it, of course, but she got it and she broke it over me and the metal piece broke. So I had a couple cuts on me and she packed me a suitcase. Mind you, I was this little that I had a Disney princess pink sparkly suitcase that she packed me. That's how little I was. So she packed me my suitcase. She put a bunch of stuff in it and she told me to get out of the house. And I was like, okay. And so I got my suitcase and I'm crying and I walked to the front of the house where the pastor lives and I was friends with their daughter. She was my age. And I had told her, I said, can I talk to Ashley? My mom just kicked me out. And then the pastor's wife was like, no, don't worry about it. Just come hang out with Ashley in the room. She's like, let me get you a couple Band-Aids and clean up your cuts, whatever. And I was like, okay. So she ended up going to the back house where we stayed. And she ended up telling Tina like, hey, what's going on? Nia's in the front. She said, you kicked her out. And in the night, I came home. The pastor's wife walked me to the back and My brother was crying and he was like, "Don't ever do that again. I went looking for you." And then Tina dropped what she was doing and started hugging me and crying. And she's like, "I was so worried about you." And I was just like, "Okay, that's weird. You literally just kicked me out and beat me up because your husband left to work." So I was still getting intensely hit. Like, I feel like it got worse and worse with each house we moved to, because we moved to a house in Montebello. And oddly enough, I got a black eye there. It's crazy because we were in the car. My little brothers, they were probably 3 and 4 at this time. And they were playing with the soccer ball and they were fighting over it. And we were in the car and my stepdad had told them to stop. So I went, I grabbed the ball, and I was sitting directly behind him. So I grabbed the ball and I was pushing it down by my feet. And he's like, "Didn't I effing say to stop playing with the ball?" Turns around and punches me in my eye. And we're about to
Oh
get
my
off
God.
to go into the market. So my eye is like swollen. I can't open it. And Tina was sitting in the back seat with my brothers. And so we walk in, my eyes watery. I end up going to the restroom and then I'm trying to open it and I had a black eye. My brother saw it and he was kind of like, "What happened?" And I was like, "Nothing." And he was mad at that time. Like, he was upset. And by then, me and my older brother were pretty close. The hitting just got worse. I was in crutches because I had a little surgery at the bottom of my foot. I went to the kitchen to get water for my medicine. My stepdad said I looked at him the wrong way. So my mom came into the room. I'm laying on my bed with my foot elevated at the time. And she's like, "Why are you looking at Roman like that?" And I was like what? Like, I went into the kitchen to get something. And mind you, he's standing in the doorway and he's smiling at me. And she gets this wire. She starts hitting me with it. At that time, I have my foot up, so I can't really do nothing and I can't get up. I can't do nothing at all. So she's hitting me and I look at him and I go, "Are you happy? Are you happy now? This is what you wanted?" So he had told her to hold me down and he grabbed my crutches and he started hitting me with them. And
Oh my
she's
goodness
laying there
gracious.
holding my legs down. So imagine all this stuff that, like, I'm a kid and I'm going through this. Eventually you're gonna get fed up, you're gonna have enough. So by then, I think my stepbrother was just visiting often. And so I think one time specifically, I knew for a fact he was living with us. We went to the swap meet. We were in a car. It was me, my stepdad, his brother, and my mom. Everybody else had already gotten off. And me and my mom got into this argument. She ended up hitting me and she starts actually fighting with me. So I'm this, by then I'm a teenager and I'm like, "Okay, you know what? I'm tired of this." So I hit her back. I start fighting back because it's about damn time I stood up for myself, because you're not going to keep doing this to me. So I hit her
And now you're
back.
13,
Now I'm
right?
13. So I hit her back. Um, and my stepdad jumps in, his brother jumps in. So I'm literally getting jumped by 3 grown adults in this car. The security guard to the swap meet was literally right there. The van door was wide open and we're all fighting at this point. And then my stepdad's like, "You're not gonna put hands on your mom." And I was like, that, to me, that is not a mom. Somebody who picks a man over her kids, lets him do all these things, that's not a mom. So that was the first time I ever fought back. And by then, my stepbrother was living with us. And I was like, "Okay, whatever, I'm going to continue getting hit. I'm going to end up getting somebody back one way or another." It got to a point where, I don't know if you know, like, after you do drugs for a certain amount of time, you kind of lose all the curves you had, you lose your body, you lose everything that made you beautiful as a person, you lose it. And my mom was a very beautiful woman when she was not on drugs. And then she started doing drugs and she just was not it anymore.
Right.
And so in my stepdad's eyes, he thought it was okay to look at me. I am barely growing into this woman. So I have a little bit of curves on me. I have a chest on me. And he would look at me a certain way in front of her. One time specifically, he had asked me, "Are you pink-eyed or brown-eyed?" I'm a kid. Don't even know what that means. As an adult, still don't know what that means. And she was like, "Why the fuck would you ask her that, Roman?" And he had been drinking at the time. And I always say, when you're drunk, your real intentions come out, because drunk thoughts are sober thoughts to me. They ended up going out so much that he ended up sleeping with a bunch of girls, and he was still hitting her at the time, because if I wasn't getting hit, she was getting hit. So
Your mom.
so my little brothers were around a bunch of stuff, and I made sure, like, when they were fighting, they were put away somewhere. The TV was loud. They couldn't hear nothing, because there's not much I could do about it. But we got close at one point. I remember she had kicked him out. He was sleeping in the car, and she would go to the car when he was outside. She would go to the car. They would have sex. He would leave her marked up with a bunch of hickeys on her neck. She would come inside, and I would tell her, like, how do you let somebody do that to you? 1, you guys aren't together. 2, he hits you. 3, you're going to let him leave you marked up like that, like you're his property. I said, what happened to you? This isn't you. From the person that would tuck me and my brother in, that would sleep in the same bed with us, to the person that put coke on my tongue when we were living at Penn Street, because I accidentally walked in because my little brother's crying in the room and you guys are in there with him, but nobody's picking him up. For me, only being 13, I was very wise and advanced. And
Wow.
It's like, it's crazy to me how much things have changed, and I got fed up with it. And I was like, you know what? I wasn't bad. I wasn't a bad kid. In my eyes, I could have been worse. With everything I was going through, I could have been worse.
Yeah.
So I decided, okay, that's when I took it into my own hands, that I was going to do what I did with my stepbrother. Because at that point, to me, I had a reason to act out.
Yeah. Well, long beyond that.
Like, it's crazy to me. I was getting hit this whole time, and none of my family knew, because I never made a big deal about it. I was like, God puts you through these things, and this is how I thought about it, and this is how I still think about it. God puts you through these things, and it either makes you or breaks you. And at that time, when I got into foster care, I begged the social worker, please take me back. I don't want nothing happening to my little brothers. Like, I'll get hit. I don't care. I'm so sorry for what I did, just because I was scared that it was going to happen to my brothers.
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Since you were in elementary school, and with all the violence
Mm-hmm.
and everything else that you experienced, were you not aware of the resources that were available to you?
Therapy,
Child Protective Services, any kind of resource. Not you personally.
No, I
I'm just
know.
talking about the community of people who are exposed to this, that remain in it, not just because they love their families or their little brothers, but because they don't necessarily know that there's a way out. There's help.
I knew there was a way out. I actually, in elementary school, when I was getting hit,
Mm-hmm.
we went to this church, the church in Norwalk, and the pastor prescribed a paddle for bad kids.
A paddle.
Yeah, it was pretty. It was a thick wooden plank with scriptures on it.
That the child would be beaten with? The pastor gave parents this thing?
Yeah. So I had let my therapist at the school know, and our mom religiously got a new paddle almost every week, because me and my older brother would hide it. And so they asked her about it. She was like, it's a religion thing. And they dropped it. And that was it. But nobody knew that I was going through what I was going through, because I never spoke up. If I ever got hit, like, for example, my black eye, I didn't go to school until it was healed. The day that I got hit with that belt from my stepdad and I had all those marks all over me, I went across the street to my friend's house the next day. I had them take a bunch of pictures with the camera I had. I went home, hid the camera, and I didn't go to school. We just said I was sick. That was it. And
Well, what happened with all those images?
they still have the camera. That was one thing I tried to take when I went into the system, and I was told by my mom that I could not take it. And I'm pretty sure she still has the camera. So all those images of when I got hit, like, I had welts from the belt on my back, on my arms, everything. I don't think anybody ever like put two and two together. Even when I was self-harming in middle school, a teacher saw, they kept me after school. My mom didn't call to find out where I was. I ended up calling my grandma and I ended up telling her, I can't get a hold of my mom. They have me here at the school. They are going to take me to the hospital because I was hurting myself. And nobody could get a hold of my mom. My grandma and my aunt come. Eventually, somebody got a hold of my mom. And she was like, I thought she got lost on the bus. And I'm in middle school. So I'm coming from Whittier to Norwalk, taking the bus by myself. A whole bunch of things could have happened if I was not at school, getting admitted to a hospital. And so as a mom, you would be concerned where your kid is. And if something was going on with your kid and they got admitted into a hospital, the first visit you have with them should not be you laughing at them because they're in there. And that's exactly what she did. So I'm in there because I'm hurting. I'm going through something. And my older brother's reaction was the reaction that a parent should have gave. He was sitting there and he was crying. And he's like, why are you doing this to yourself? And my mom is sitting there and she's laughing and he's putting her in check. And he's like, why are you laughing? This is serious. She could have died. And I'm crying because I'm like, dang, I didn't know that somebody actually cared. And he's sitting there and he cares. And my mom, who gave birth to me, doesn't care. So it's like a bunch of things led up to what I did.
Well, I got to say, I think it's amazing with all you've been through where you've gotten yourself, because you did it yourself. You're the architect of your own life here. It's really incredible.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nia, for sharing your story. It was a pleasure talking to you. And I wish you all the best with your goals, and I'm sure you'll attain them because of the strength you found in yourself and the community of support that you've built. So thank you. And join us next week when Jayne speaks with Gay Quarter, who's a best-selling author and was a guardian ad litem in Florida for over 25 years. She wrote a book about her work, I Speak for This Child, which was nominated for a Pulitzer Prize. Be well. If you see something, say something. If you suspect a child's health or safety is jeopardized in any way by parents or anyone else, contact the Child Protective Services Agency in your county. 24-hour hotlines are staffed by trained social workers who will help you through the process, and you can do so anonymously. In California, you can call the Child Protection Hotline at 800-540-4000. So if you see something, say something. You might be saving a child's life. If you want to know more about becoming a CASA anywhere in the country, go to nationalcasagal.org. And in LA, casala.org. And if you want to know more about becoming a foster parent, check out the National Foster Parent Association at nfponline.org. There's also faithfosterfamilies.org and adoptuskids.org. There's tons of other information online as well, so you can just hunt around. We also want to thank the supremely talented Christina Apostolopoulos for her beautiful original music. You can find her music on Spotify or Instagram at Christina Aposto. And also thank you to Yukon Har for his engineering. Thanks for listening, and if you like what you hear and you find it as valuable as we do, please rate us and hit subscribe. You can also make a donation at bonusbabies.org. See you next time.